Okay, committee and members of the public, good afternoon. Welcome to this meeting of the Northern Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Julian Dean, Chair of the committee. A few housekeeping points. We're not expecting a fire drill today. In the event of the alarm sounding, please leave the building and gather at the front of the building. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Whilst we do our best to live stream meetings, there may be occasions when there are technical problems. If the live stream is halted for a technical reason, the meeting will be paused briefly to address the issue. If the issue persists and the live stream cannot be resumed, the meeting will continue even if it is no longer being transmitted live, and a backup recording will be published after the meeting. Could I also ask you to please ensure that mobile phones are switched off and ensure the volume on your laptop is muted. Like that. To ensure the members of this committee and all points raised by the public speakers are... Can you not? I'll speak up. I'm not sure. Is there a speaker at the back apart from this? No. Okay. To ensure that members of this committee and all points raised by the public speakers are properly heard, I must advise you that I will not tolerate any disruptive behaviour. This is a meeting held in public, not a public meeting, and if such behaviour takes place and persists, I will adjourn the meeting. Members should ensure that they are present throughout the meeting, as you cannot vote on an item if you have not heard all of the debate. Can members and officers introduce themselves each time before they speak, so those listening know who is speaking? Was that better? Okay, it's if people could also just be mindful of not wandering around, because the floor is so noisy, it can make listening very difficult for people. But thank you for drawing attention to it, and just wave if you can't hear us, and I'll get people to speak up. Okay, so I'd now ask members of the committee and officers to introduce themselves.
Joanne Thomas, solicitor.
Emily Marshall, committee officer.
Kim Brown, solicitor.
Councillor Gregory Ebbs, Whitchurch South.
Councillor Andy Davis, St Oswald.
Councillor Mark Owen, Oswestry South East.
Councillor Adam Faith for Monkmoor Shrewsbury.
Councillor Gary Groves, Wen.
Rosemary Dartnell, councillor for Colin Sutton.
Councillor Brendan Mullen, Turn.
Councillor Carl Rowley, St Martin's Western and Ellesmere Rural.
Tabitha Lith, Planning and Development Services Manager.
Ollie Thomas, Principal Planning Officer.
Emma Green, Area Planning Manager.
Thank you very much, and I'm Julian Dean, as I said, Councillor for Port Hill. Apologies for absence. Apologies for absence have been received from Councillor Brian Evans and substitute Councillor Brendan Mallon. We've also had apologies from Ed Potter and Rosie Radford. Item 2. Minutes to confirm minutes for the meeting held on the 9th of December 2025. Do I see a proposer for those minutes? Thank you. A seconder? Thank you. Does anybody wish to raise any matters? Does anybody wish to object to those minutes? I'll take that as those minutes are accepted. Thank you very much. Item 3, public questions. No public questions have been received. Item 4, disclosable pecuniary interests. Do we have any to disclose? No. Item 5, we move on to the planning applications. So the first application we are considering is proposed residential development land on the west side of Ellesmere Road, Shrewsbury. Officers, if you'd like to take us through the application.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So as on screen, this is a, sorry, just go back. Outline application for residential development of up to 450 dwellings, strategic infrastructure to include open space, drainage and engineering works, with some matters, landscape appearance, layout and scale, reserved apart from strategic access. There are no further updates other than the late rep sent out last night, and no changes to the report. Members did a site walkover of this one earlier today, so there were not many slides in here of photos because we should have it all fresh in our minds. The red line boundary is shown on screen here. The site lies to the north side of Shrewsbury, sorry. Just So in terms of kind of the site surroundings, we've got the railway line to the west, the old riverbed to the north, and then the east and south, we've got existing residential areas of Shrewsbury. The site is outside of the development boundary as currently shown in the Sandev plan. Here's a bit more of a scaled in view. This image is in here because it kind of shows the red line boundary in its proximity to, we've got the old riverbed to the north of the site. You can see it looping round and then heading back south into the town centre. The portion immediately adjacent to the site to the north is a local wildlife site, whereas the ecological designation, the SSSI, is the portion further to the east. So we're not actually physically adjoining the SSSI section, just the LWS. With it being an outline plan, the applicant has submitted this illustrative master plan to demonstrate how they can achieve the quantum and mix of uses within the description. You can see within, perhaps not that clearly because of the scale of it, but you can see the various development parcels, you can see the internal road and street network, and you can see a big portion of public open space to the north. Access is provided from the east at various locations. There are 2 vehicular accesses off Ellesmere Road. The first access will serve phase 1, which is further to the south. It's the purple arrow. Can you make out colours on there? It's this arrow here is the vehicle access to serve phase 1. The next arrow up is a pedestrian and cycle access into the site. Just beyond that is the secondary vehicular access to serve phase 2, and then there's a final pedestrian and cycle access point further north along the boundary. Also, along the eastern edge of the site, adjacent with Ellesmere Road, there is provision of a 0.25 hectare local centre. The details of that are not available at outline stage. It's simply to secure the principle of it. The local centre will serve both future and existing residents. It's been located so as it's close to vehicular and pedestrian points to improve the permeability and connectivity of the site. So this is just looking at the access and movement in more detail and showing off-site parameters. We can see within this plan that it shows all of the public rights of way network. It shows the existing footpath and cycleways within the wider residential area and how this development can work to make a bit more of a joined up network. It also pinpoints the bus stop locations. There are several along Ellesmere Road and then one along Hubert Way. As you'll see in the report, the developer is willing to contribute towards public transport. So the exact package of that is not yet known, but it's anticipated there will be, an improved bus service for residents as a result of this development. This plan and these zoomed in images are just highlighting what the access junctions will look like. So the southern access point will just be creating a junction into the existing Ellesmere Road. With this being to serve phase 1 and phase 1 set at 150 dwellings, the access junctions commensurate with the scale of what phase 1 will deliver. And then when phase 2 comes forward, the image at the top of the screen, it's a bit more of a robust junction. There's a ghost island within the road for cars turning right. This plan is taken from the active travel and transport statements to demonstrate the walkability of the application site. So the application site is outlined in red towards the left-hand corner, really. And then there's a series of different coloured routes emanating away from the site. So the yellow lines indicate less than 400 metre walk. The green lines indicate, or the light green lines indicate a 400 to 800 metre walk. The darker green, 800 to 1,200 metres. and then the blue 1,200 to 2 kilometres. So this plan, it demonstrates, the range of services and facilities that are within accessible and walkable distances from the site. This is also not taking into account the local centre that the site will deliver as well. So there will be some uses available for the community to walk to and cycle to within the actual application site itself. In terms of active travel interventions, the applicant, is willing to contribute towards active travel for the wider Shrewsbury area. There is quite a substantial developer contribution being secured. The exact measures that will be provided are not 100% set out yet, although what they are offering is a toucan crossing in between the two proposed access points. So that will ease the permeability for existing residents on the opposing side of Ellesmere Road to cross Ellesmere Road and access the proposed local centre. We are aware that there is, the Shrewsbury Move strategy and the LC whips, which look at how they can improve cycle infrastructure on the network. Our highways officer is in active discussions with our recently appointed active travel officer as to what is the best solution to deliver wider active travel mitigation for the scheme here, but also for wider residents. That's why it's not yet been confirmed what that is, but there is a contribution which will be fed into that. Thank you. So the main issues with this site is it was a former draft allocation in the emerging plan. We've obviously now taken the decision to withdraw that, but we are attaching weight to the evidence base that sits behind that. And as many sites have come to committee already, and the former draft allocations are receiving positive weight from that aspect. The application has been with the council for several years. It's one of our long-standing ones. There have been a couple of issues as to why that is the case. The first one, the application was made fairly premature in advance of the emerging local plan, and the council were of the opinion it was too premature to make a decision whilst that plan was going through examination stage. As it was progressing through our examination stage, we were able to attach more weight to the policies and the allocations that were coming out of it. We've now decided to withdraw that plan, so it doesn't really have any bearing at this moment. The second issue is Northwest Relief Road. This site allocation was kind of formulated on the basis that the Northwest Relief Road was going to be delivered. And as a result of that, there was a requirement within the policy that only 150 dwellings could be built out before Northwest Relief Road was operational. Since the council have taken a decision to pause on the Northwest Relief Road, the applicant has undertaken their own modelling exercise to understand what the development as a whole would do to the transport network within Shrewsbury at key junctions, which have been agreed by our Highways Authority through all the various scoping notes. That modelling exercise has demonstrated that this site does not need the Northwest Relief Road to be delivered without causing severe impact or congestion on the network. Because we're able to come to that positive resolution in regards to Northwest Relief Road, we as a council, or we as officers, are able to put forward a recommendation for the whole development to be with the recommendation of approval subject to 106. The majority of the technical consultees raised no objection. There is an outstanding objection from Active Travel England. They're not a statutory body in the sense that they have call-in powers, but they have made several recommendations. Officers are of the view that the applicants are willing to contribute towards active travel. There are a number of other contributions being sought from the developer for a wide number of things, including education, healthcare, playing pitches, sports provision, whereby officers have come to the judgment that the active travel contribution is sufficient in totality when weighed up against all of the other contributions, that the scheme is acceptable from an active travel point of view. We would obviously expect that when the reserve matters comes forward, a more detailed scheme in terms of on-site infrastructure would be put forward, and then active travel would be involved at that stage again. Thank you.
I'm done. Oh, thank you very much. So the next stage is to hear from our public speakers. So the first speaker will be Robert Mitchell. Good afternoon. So if you press the right hand button, it should light up red, and then you'll have 3 minutes from when you begin speaking. Yeah.
The planner's report to the committee recommends approval, but this, in our opinion, should not be the case. It should be important to you, especially those on this committee, to listen to those who live in the area to get a full understanding of the issues, rather than just going through the motions to complete a tick box exercise with limited local knowledge of the site and the surrounding environments. Responsibility for making these decisions surely cannot be taken if you are aware that the information is inadequate or inaccurate. As at today, well-reasoned comments by the public have been received from 139 people, of which 133 have objected, 2 supported. The report includes the planner's summary of some of these extensive public comments, and I won't go into these as I assume the committee members have read and fully appreciated the limited précis of the comments. We are aware of the volumes of submissions and the level of detail attached to the outline application for this development, which could add another 450 houses to Ellesmere Road. But the committee needs to ensure they are fully conversant and confident with all the issues. This planning application appears to have misrepresentations, inaccuracies, and misconceptions. To keep it brief, just a couple of illustrations from the non-technical summary of the Transport and Highways issued in January 26. On the site location plan, figure 2, which was shown earlier on, shows local amenities implying 2 local GP practices. One in Battlefield Industrial Estate is a care provider. The other on Whitchurch Road is the dermatology clinic. There are no GP surgeries in the immediate area. More significantly, junctions included in the traffic impact assessment, figure 3, omit to show the recently approved Cedars Drive junction, serving 38 houses, the approved care community at Hencott, which is a major development. I question if all the new and proposed developments on Ellesmere Road alone have been accounted for in the data employed. The traffic assessment is clearly incomplete and flawed when it is imperative that true and accurate data is available to you to enable you to make sound decisions. Our planners continue to accept submissions at face value, recommending these for acceptance and getting approvals from this committee. My impression is that this submission has been completed as a desktop study with little or no local knowledge of the site or Shrewsbury in general, which has resulted in misinformation and misrepresentation.
You are running out of time.
Since the original application in March 23, there have been additional ever-increasing traffic on Ellesmere Road, the mayhem of the station gyratory, and approvals of houses on Cedars Drive and Hencott.
I'm going to have to stop you. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I've run over. Sorry.
There's a lot to be resolved on this issue.
Thank you very much. Before you go, though, just to check whether there's any questions of clarification from members. No. Oh, yes, one. Yes.
Just to ask, where is the closest GP surgery?
Where's the nearest GP surgery? Probably the Riverside down in town.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
There are none north of town. The big seven side as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is. Any comments from officers?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just doing one quick search because the resident mentioned that the Cedars Drive and the transport assessment. I'm pretty confident that that application gained access off Cedars Drive, so it utilised an existing access point anyway.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jeffcock. You have 5 minutes from when you begin.
Am I live? Yeah, I am. Right. Well, thanks, members. As my colleague, Mr. Mitchell said, 5 minutes isn't long enough to go through all of the many objections that people have raised about this application. My key focus today is to urge you to defer this 2022 application for just a little bit longer to make sure that our consideration is given with the best possible information about what it will mean for the traffic network, in particular for the gyratory, but also for it will have knock-on effects at the other end. We need to know exactly what will happen at the northern end of Ellesmere Road and at the Coton Hill junction with Berwick Road, which is a serious pinch point, as well as at the gyratory, which is right on the edge of gridlock. I am not confident that the hybrid transport assessment that members have been given is sufficiently comprehensive and accurate, and I think we can do better. I also think that it is premature to proceed without further discussions with Active Travel England, which the situation now is that we know that active travel is important. We also know that there is a possibility that this council can make progress on active travel in the way that perhaps in the past it could not. But when this application was first put forward, it was linked by my predecessor, Alex Phillips, to the Northwest Relief Road, which an awful lot was riding on for many years. The Northwest Relief Road is undeliverable. It will not happen. There is not going to be manna from heaven from the government, £200 million. It's not there. We have to make the best of what we've got. I recognise that the environment facing councillors and facing the public is different. Legislation has changed. The government expectation has changed. The policy and the personnel of this council is very different to where we were in 2022. I think we can do better. I urge you to defer, in particular to look at getting the best we can out of these developers in terms of protecting the environment, the north of the site, the buffer zone next to the local nature reserve, which is very, very close to an SSSI on the other side of the road. I think we can do better there. I think we can do better on active travel and mechanisms to get people out of their cars and to prevent gridlock, which will otherwise face us from a grand total of 763 dwellings or beds along Ellesmere Road since 2022, since that condition was imposed. We've taken that condition off. Are we really confident that the traffic from those 763 houses or dwellings will not cause unreasonable and impossible congestion? I think there is a way forward, but we're not there yet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions to Councillor Jeffcoat from members? No? Okay. Any comments from officers? No? Okay. Thank you very much. And our third speaker is the agent, is Sarah Butterfield. Hi, Sarah. So you have 3 minutes from when you begin.
Thank you and good afternoon. This application seeks outline planning permission with all matters reserved except access for up to 450 residential dwellings, policy compliant 10% affordable housing, a local centre, vehicle, pedestrian and cycle provisions and green infrastructure including play areas, landscaping and on-site BNG. Whilst the proposed development does comprise development outside the settlement boundary, its location also accords with the Council's adopted spatial strategy by delivering development on the edge of Shrewsbury, which is a strategic centre where the Council seeks to direct development in accordance with its evidence base from the former local plan. That supported the site's draft allocation in the withdrawn plan, and it confirms that the Council consider the site a suitable and sustainable location for development. In addition, as the council cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply, the NPPF presumption in favour of sustainable development must be applied. The proposed development will deliver a comprehensive sustainable scheme. 2 site access points are provided off Ellesmere Road, up to 450 dwellings, including 10% affordable housing, and a local centre to the benefit of surrounding residents as well as the residents of the future scheme. A network of green infrastructure will also deliver environmental benefits, including sustainable drainage and on-site BNG delivery. Whilst the former draft allocation required that the development be dependent on the delivery of the North West Relief Road, the applicant has worked closely with Shropshire Council Highways and undertaken detailed modelling work that demonstrates the development can be delivered without the NWRR needing to be operational, subject to the identified mitigations. Pedestrian and cycle improvements will ensure the development connects to the existing network and offers enhanced connectivity to the town centre. Improvements will include a toucan crossing on Ellesmere Road, a shared footway and cycleway at the vehicular access points and along the site frontage, and connections to the existing wider cycle and walking networks. Section 106 will also secure further off-site active travel improvements for pedestrians and cyclists. There are bus stops within 400 metres of the site which offer services to Shrewsbury and beyond, and a financial contribution will be secured to further improve bus frequency. All technical matters have been considered and addressed, including highways, landscape, ecology and biodiversity, mineral safeguarding, trees, heritage and archaeology, noise and air quality, flood risk and drainage and ground contamination. The development will deliver a range of financial obligations in addition to SIL through a Section 106 agreement, including on and off-site transport improvements to bus services and active travel, toward playing pitches, education and healthcare, plus the on-site delivery of affordable housing and BNG. This development will deliver residential dwellings, including affordable housing and local services, boosting housing land supply in Shropshire and in a sustainable location. There are no harms arising from the development that would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits, and planning permission should be granted. We would ask you to support this proposal in line with your officer's recommendation to grant planning permission, subject to conditions under Section 106. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. I just wanted to ask you about the affordable housing at 10%. Is that what it was in 2022 when it was applied for?
So I understand that the policy, it's policy compliant in accordance with policy CS11, which requires affordable housing at the prevailing rate. I think that's set out in your officer's report as well.
Thank you. Can I just remind members to tell everybody who you are when you ask your questions? Just help. Yes, Councillor.
Brendan Mallon, Councillor for Turn. You mentioned funding for active travel. Can you be specific what you're proposing to fund, please?
Yeah, so as Ollie said, the officer, in his discussions, what that would actually be spent on is currently ongoing. We do envisage that there are some cycle links in the immediate wider area that would essentially link down in towards the town centre, for part of it at least, but as Ollie said, what it would exactly be spent on is just being discussed for the Section 106.
Any preliminary ideas or concepts?
Give me a minute. I've got a couple of points we can make.
I'm going to come to the officer on that one as well.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we have, as I mentioned, we've recently appointed a active travel officer, and prior to that we had a range of LC whips that were to deliver cycle infrastructure improvements within the town centres. I think our active travel officer since being appointed has been reviewing those LC whips and is unsure as to whether that actually creates the best offer available. So we have the LC whip as a backup, but the active travel officer is engaging on this site and looking at what is the best solution to deliver active travel using the contribution that this application will provide, plus a series of others across the town centre.
So before you go on, betray my ignorance here. What's an LC whip?
Local cycling walking infrastructure plan.
Thank you.
Based on that, I don't think we need any more from you. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Oh yes, officer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Ollie Thomas. I just want to correct myself from what I said at the very start of my presentation. I said there have been no further updates since the late rep sheet last night. We have had 3 very late reps come in, 3 further objections. I've had a very quick summary, a review of those, and they seem to be all raising similar issues as to what is set out within the committee report anyway. Just wanted to correct myself on that point.
Okay, thank you. So it's over to members for discussion and further questions to officers. I'd just like to kick off with one question actually around the highways assessment. The member of the public suggested that highways assessment did not take into account the development of the care facility to the north of the site. And looking at the report, the highways assessment came in October 25. I can't remember exactly when we approved the care facility, but it wasn't much before that. So it's quite possible that the work for this report did precede that decision. Do you have any information on that?
Don't know off the top of my head, but in terms of kind of the highway modelling work that was undertaken, so the applicant was hoping to use the Shropshire Council model that is available for the town centre, but due to time constraints, that wasn't possible. And so in discussions with our Highways Authority, they've agreed the scope in terms of what that model should look at. And it is a fully agreed scope from the council's highways officer that the appropriate junctions were considered. Had additional junctions been needed to have been taken into account, I would have expected that would have been requested at that point, but there was no request to do so.
Just to follow that up, because my specific question is whether they would have at that stage had the information regarding the additional traffic due to the development just north of the old riverbed. And I suppose the other one that occurs to me is that at that point I don't think the gyratory system was in place either. So it just seems to me that there's a couple of things which have changed significantly, or could have changed significantly since that report was prepared. That seems to have come forward in October 25.
Yes. So I do know the gyratory system was included within the model. The care home, I will have to I'll see if I can come back to you on that point. I don't know off the top of my head.
Thank you. I can see Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Chair. 2 points. I think that members and officers would understand the confusion that comes from a previous traffic assessment that was adamant that this development would require the Northwest Relief Road, and then the later assessment which says we can manage with various additions. The point being that you can probably understand the confusion from members of the public and members as well when you see the two one after the other. Can you just clarify that? I've got a second point after that, if you don't mind.
Yes, thank you. Just to come back with you, Chair, quickly.
Yes.
The care home development was considered within the modelling. Our highways officers just confirmed it was.
Thank you.
In response to the allocation requirement setting out 150, looking back, because obviously that policy allocation was drafted a fair long while ago, it does seem to be a somewhat arbitrary position. There is no empirical evidence sitting behind it to say that 150 is the absolute cap at what scale of development can come forward in advance of the Northwest Relief Road. And the fact that they've done their own modelling to demonstrate that it can be achieved is pretty conclusive. I don't believe that level of modelling was undertaken when that 150 cap was kind of imposed on that policy allocation.
Excellent. And the second point, if you don't mind. The other thing is, with my education background, seeing the report that there is limited primary places at the moment, and virtually zero secondary places in Shrewsbury to cope with the increases in developments. I just wonder if I have a horror that come 3 or 4 years down the line, if that is still the situation and nothing is done in the meantime, we're going to have, did the report say, 63 places in a secondary with no secondary school for them to go to, in which case, presumably, such a situation would require busing out of Shrewsbury to provide the secondary education. I acknowledge the section 106 where money is being put in to education. I'm just wondering if it's worthwhile considering a condition that should we get to a situation where there aren't places 4 years down the line, that the situation is resolved before this development is populated with residents?
Any response?
I think that's not an enforceable condition because that's not on the applicant to provide school places. We have SIL that we also will be collecting on top of Section 106 contributions, and it's on the council to use that SIL money to then provide the service. So we can't, as long as the applicant pays the money that through SIL that they should do and their Section 106 contribution, then the onus is on the council to use that money to yeah.
Thanks for the clarification.
Councillor Mallon?
Thank you, Chair. So, back to the modelling we've brought up before, provided by the applicant. First question, is it normal for the applicant to do their own modelling and for us to accept that, or do we have any sort of peer review or challenge to how they've done that to ensure it is indeed accurate? Because we did, perhaps by your suggestion that our own modelling might not have been as rigorous, but at the same time there was clearly a conflict of interest for an applicant. You know, that they're going to want to support their, without inferring anything, but, you know, there might be some inherent there. And on the modelling specifically, you've mentioned that it incorporated the gyratory. However, the gyratory, according to Shrewsbury Moves, is a temporary arrangement in that that gyratory system will be converted to the Chester Street and Castle Foregate loop that only allows cars come down Ellesmere Road and back up again, or at most head up towards Harlescott, up St Michael Street. You can't get through town. So while the gyratory doesn't fundamentally change traffic flow through town, it has caused issues, but you know, you can still drive through town down Smithfield, which will be deleted. It will become pedestrianised, so you can't go there anymore. Was that incorporated? Because that will change things markedly.
Yes. So, Shropshire Council, we do have our own model of Shrewsbury Town Centre in terms of the junctions and the traffic flows through. Unfortunately, at the time that this applicant was wanting to access into that model, it just wasn't. We weren't able to work within the timescales required. So, as I said, they went off and did their own. At every stage throughout that, they scoped with our Highways Authority to make sure that their model was going to be a robust and rigorous assessment that wouldn't raise these sorts of queries when we're reviewing it. So our highways were consistently checking in terms of what junction capacity assessment works were being done and what traffic flows were being looked at. So in terms of the robustness of it, you know, I think officers have no concern in that sense at all. The gyratory being a temporary fix, I don't know, is the honest answer to that. I know, you know, so the highways model, it does look at current baseline years and then future years. So it looks 20 odd years in the future in terms of what that then has on the whole traffic flow. It passes on, well, it doesn't show it's a severe or congested network in both scenarios. So I think I can only work on the assumption that, you know, if the gyratory is to change again, then that would need to be fed into any future model and then designed accordingly.
It's not an if, with respect. It is inherent to both the big town plan and the Shrewsbury Moves scheme that will be a return loop where you can come in towards town but go back out again. You can't come through. That's a huge change to traffic flow. So unless we know that's been specifically incorporated into the model, then it's planning to fail.
Does that future scheme of the gyratory have consent?
It's the policy of this council to go ahead with that scheme. So it is going to happen unless something fundamental changes.
The big town plan and Shrewsbury Moves, they're not policy documents per se. They are material considerations with our planning assessments, but they've not been through the rigour of consultation or examination. So they're not policy documents in terms of how we would view them.
But is it not reasonable to at least see it as a highly likely that it's going to happen, since that's the direction of travel? And would it be worth knowing whether in that circumstance with that traffic configuration that the modelling will still work?
I take the point. So I think where we're at with that is that whilst they don't sit within, if you like, the policy documents that define our current local plan, they are nevertheless material considerations, and certainly members should be taking that into account. Yes.
I mean, our highways team have independently reviewed this, as Ollie mentioned, that they fed into the model of what they needed to see, but they are, as with many of our other teams, ecology, etc., they are our team of people to challenge what's being submitted to make sure it meets the standards. Our highways officer has given no objection to this scheme for a reason, because they're satisfied that the information provided meets the policies.
But can you provide us the reassurance that that specific aspect, not to keep going over it, was considered and still passed the assessment?
But we'll come back to.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Councillor Andy Davis. I will reiterate what Councillor Owen has said. I'm concerned about the education system. The fact that the education department have stated quite categorically there is no room in any primary or secondary school in the locality for those children. That's my first real concern. My second is the ecology risks with the old riverbed. I'm quite surprised to find in the report, we talked about badgers this morning, there's nothing related to the beavers which have recently been released in the bed. There was a survey carried out in 2022, and the beavers were only just released in 2025, and there's no evidence there whatsoever on the impact of little beavers, which is really concerning. And I will reiterate also the transport concerns and the amount of transport. I know we've heard what just been said. Knowing that road exceptionally well, knowing how is a gridlock, going down into town, what it's like at a Battlefield roundabout, opposite Hubert Way, that is a very busy and congested road. So I would like to see a more detailed traffic survey report showing the impact of those additional vehicles, 763, on that stretch of road, to be convinced that it is totally viable. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Can I just clarify, when you say more detailed, what are you expecting?
Well, for example, just on the one turn off where we got Hubert Way, we have all the vehicles coming out of the access where we walked this morning. Hubert Way is a very busy estate. There's a lot of traffic coming in and out of there, feeding the whole of that estate. I'd like to see the impact of just one junction, when you've got 763 vehicles coming out of 3 different ways, and then proceeding with Hubert Way as well. How's that going to impact on the Ellesmere Road? How's it going to impact further down towards town, with the congestion going into town past the Old Furrows?
So that's exactly the assessment they have done. They have looked at proposed access points and how that impacts on the existing road network. So that's my concern in you saying you want further work. It's just clarifying what that is.
Right, okay.
I think just to add what I'll be saying, sorry.
Chair, please. I'll come back to you, but I've got, I think, Councillor Dartland, did you indicate, and then Councillor? Okay, beg your pardon. Yeah, coming in, then Councillor Rowley.
Councillor Mallon again here from Turn. So on that, I mean, I agree with Councillor Davis there. I mean, it looks like potential for a lot of rat running down St Hubert and Mount Pleasant, to just try and get away from the congestion and find a way out to wherever you're going to go to, school, work, whatever. I would like to see this in specific. I just want to back up your point there on that. When I looked at that today, first thing, 2 words I thought were rat run. We'd like to see very specific results of the modelling as opposed to just it works, because it's a qualitative aspect of this, not just the quantity of traffic. Which specific roads, which specific communities will be affected?
Just before officers come back, just in terms of local knowledge, I appreciate many of the points, but Hubert Way would not work as a rat run. It doesn't go anywhere. So it's.
I think I'm confused with Mount Pleasant, but the same point applies. You are going to want to get away from Ellesmere Road.
I'll come back to officers on this, and then I have a couple of points I want to make.
Yeah. Okay. So rat running. I'd be keen to understand in what route you think a rat run would be. And then I could perhaps respond to that. Is it
primarily Mount Pleasant, but also up through the Battlefield estate, industrial estate? No. Other ways of getting east and getting off the main road, because that's what I'd be looking at if I was trying to commute out of there in the morning.
I don't quite follow on the rat running. aspect of it, because there's two vehicular accesses onto Ellesmere Road.
Yeah, but it's where the traffic goes next, going somewhere.
It's either going out of Shrewsbury or into Shrewsbury.
Yeah, but to get out of Shrewsbury, if it's all on the same roads, that's going to become problematic. It could be busy enough at current rates. So people will then start turning off through the estate to the east, primarily down Mount Pleasant. Do you see my point?
I do, but that's okay.
You know, it will start to flow out. People will try and avoid congestion as it builds up. People will be using the apps on their phone to avoid it. Will be sending them down these streets. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, just on kind of the map that's on the screen there. There'd be no concern of rat running within that residential area because they wouldn't get anywhere. They'd have to travel northwards and then east into the house.
It's just north of there that you start to have the
You're
options.
talking about cutting through Ditherington, aren't
Yes.
you? And I think we're starting to talk about how people might potentially drive cars, and this is the highways assessment has done the requirements it needs to. We can't cover off every potential possible route that people may take beyond a distance. There's other highways components of the council that look at how people are driving around the town, and they adapt to what people start to do over time. But the assessment has met the requirements. Our highways officer is satisfied that it meets the requirements, and you're picking on a particular issue that I think is going out of the scope of what is being asked.
I think we've got three separate issues there. North West Relief Road, the gyratory / loop, and also potential for rat running. And I think we would appreciate some qualitative data, not just a general it's fine, because it's quite complex. I don't think we're seeing that in what's been presented to us. We want more detail on that qualitatively.
Can I just confirm that you have then reviewed the 313 pages of hybrid modelling assessment work? Because everything is contained within there as to whether this development is acceptable from a highways perspective. All of the modelling data is provided within appendices. It takes a technical expert to understand what that data says, but it does prove that they have done the assessment work that we expect of them to do for a development of this scale. It would be disproportionate to ask the developer to do, look at every single junction within Shrewsbury or look at every single future layout of a highways junction, unless it's consented or committed, i.e. it's an allocated or has extant planning permission. There is only a finite expectation in terms of what a highway network is going to look like. If it sits within a Shrewsbury Move strategy or big town plan as a kind of wish list or a vision, fine, but we have to take a realistic approach to securing new development, and we can only make assessments based on what we know and what's realistic at that time.
I'm going to move this on. I think members, we need to either accept the highways assessment or have specific reasons why we don't want to accept it. Yeah, I do have I'm coming to Councillor Rowley next, but I just think we probably need to move on to other issues. Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Carl Rowley, St Martin's, Western Ellesmere Rural. I'm going to talk a little bit about the North West Relief Road. We haven't really discussed it that much. We talked about the gyratory and stuff. I do have concerns with gyratory in the Smithfield Road because, let's be honest, now, if you want to escape from this area, if you want to escape out to the west, the only way you're going to get out is through the Smithfield Road. And if that's not there, you're in trouble from the start. Traffic going to the south, the only real way out will be heading up the Ellesmere Road, which is just coming down the A49. The A49 can't cope as it is now, and it's going to struggle as we go forward. I understand all the things saying about the modelling the highways. And something I want to understand. When they model, do we take into consideration potential other speculative planning that's taking part to the north of Shrewsbury? So south of Shrewsbury, we're really lucky. We've got the A5 going all the way across. It's easy to escape. The north of Shrewsbury, we've got a big problem. Huge problem with that Northwest Relief Road. Now, the councillor for the area, he's already stated that the Northwest Relief Road won't go ahead. It won't happen. We're not going to get government funding. So that is not the view of the administration at the moment. The view of the administration at the moment is that the Northwest Relief Road is paused. And the point I want to make at the moment really is until the administration gives a full understanding of what they plan to do with the North West Relief Road, whether they want to cancel it or they want to go ahead with it. Because pausing it just is that, isn't it? They haven't made a decision, and we need them to make a decision in order for us to really properly look at the size of some of these developments that we're going to, this one in particular, and another development that we're going to see soon in Battlefield, to the north of the Battlefield. And that is my concern. The A49 can't cope now as it is, and that is the only way out to the south. To the northwest, there's no other way out to Shrewsbury, and we're going to close Shrewsbury as well.
Okay,
thank you.
I'm going to have to just make the point that what we can't do is judge this based on the potential for speculative development outside of this application. I appreciate that that's a concern, but it's not something, you know, we will be hauled over the coals if we make a decision based on our speculation about speculative developments which haven't even come forward yet. But I will come to officers, and then I am going to suggest that members are just going to have to come to a judgment when we come to making a decision about whether you accept the highways assessment or not.
Thank you, Chair. So just to respond to the question that was at the start of it in terms of what does the model actually take into account. So when the scoping assessment comes in and it looks at specific junctions that is going to be considered within this model, it will take into account committed developments. So it's those that are, you know, have permission or are allocated within the local plan process because there's an expectation that they will be delivered. It won't take into account speculative sites because by nature they are speculative. We don't know when or where they're coming. However, it would be down to those developments as and when they come forward to wash their own face from a highways point of view. And they would then have to take into account, say, if this site was to get approved, they'd have to take into account this site and any other additions that happen in that meantime. The applicant can only respond to what's available in front of them.
Briefly,
we haven't really mentioned the A49. Did the applicant take the A49 into consideration with their modelling, or was it just the junctions around the area of the application?
I don't, as in the A49 up towards Sundawn Way. Yeah, I don't think it would have gone that far. It would be at where kind of anticipated trip movements are going to go. And it's whether would someone on Ellesmere Road take the A49 to get to where they want to go, essentially. So I'm just having a quick look. So
the only way you'd go to get south. So if you want to go to Telford, that's the way you're going.
Whilst
I've got it here. The A49 is not explicitly mentioned, but there are 18 study areas that have been modelled, 18 junctions within the study area that they extend out to Battlefield roundabout.
Okay, Councillor Dartnell and then myself.
Yeah, thank you. You're pleased to hear I don't want to talk about transport. I want to ask about affordable housing. The council has an ambition to achieve 40% affordable housing. I think at the moment in Shrewsbury we require 20% for, is that right, or is it 15? Right, okay. So it varies across Shropshire. I think that irrespective of whether it's policy compliant, I think this is policy compliant because it's an old application. Is that right?
Potentially. So in attaching weight to the evidence base that sits under the withdrawn plan, and in recognition that CS11 of the current plan adopts a dynamic approach, i.e. it changes depending on what the viability study suggests is needed for a particular area. We currently now have a 10-20 split. So the north of the county, most of Shrewsbury and up, is 10%. Everything else is 20%. Prior to that, there was a 10, 15 and 20%. This may have fallen within the previous 10% as well. The chances are it probably did if affordable housing hasn't changed across the years. So they meet the current prevailing rate based on what the evidence-based viability studies suggest is needed for affordable housing.
It's not about submission date, just to be clear, it's about the date we're determining it though. So whilst it's been in a long time, it's being considered against the policies that are in place at this particular moment. So as policy shifted, that's where we're going with it.
Thank you. So I'm calling myself next. I'd like to come back to Councillor Jeffcott's points, really, because I think that in terms of the active travel, what we've heard is that there is work going on around the active travel contribution. I think Councillor Jeffcott is suggesting that we really need to see more detail from that before we can determine whether this meets our aspirations. We're now hearing that even the LC whips are up for litigation. So I'm currently minded to go with the local member's suggestion that we should look for a deferral to get more detail and on this. And in particular, I'm concerned about access to the schools in north of this site. The Ellesmere Road is pretty awful from an active travel point of view currently, and so accessing for children accessing both primary and secondary schools to the north is not good, and I would like to see more robust connection into the active travel routes to the south. So that's where I am at the moment. I'm happy for officers to comment on that, but that's where I'm minded at the moment. If you'd like to comment on that, now you will too. Otherwise, I'll go on to Councillor Ebbs.
No, I'd like to come back if I may, Chair. Your comments are noted, but I think, again, we have to appreciate we're at the outline stage. Active travel is obviously very important to us in our decision making, but equally we have to weigh into the balance, contributions towards education, contributions towards healthcare, contributions towards play provision, and there is it's not an unlimited pot of money that we can dip into. We have to go through lengthy negotiations with the applicant to determine what is both acceptable to make the development enough to make the development acceptable in planning terms, and then also proportionate to the scale of the development. There have been, I can tell you now, there have been very lengthy discussions with the applicant as to what the package of developer contributions will look like, and officers are confident that the package on the table today is more than sufficient to deliver far and wide-reaching benefits. In terms of the providing them with the financial contribution, which suggests that it won't be them delivering it. It will go into a pot of money for the council to deliver at some point once they have worked up a detailed design. So I would anticipate that there will be future opportunities for members to be involved within those discussions of what any active travel improvements would look like, and then work out what other developments need to contribute towards that. Equally, with it being outlined, we only know where access is being punched through into the site. How the site will work, how the site will connect, we don't know that. So it's almost, we're kind of, in trying to put too much detail on the table now, we'd be almost restricting or curbing the future reserve matters, because we would be limiting into, the connection routes through when that might not be the best available to us. So the active travel is important, but I think it's got a fair share within the decision and the recommendation put forward.
Thank you. Councillor Ebbs.
I don't have a question. You asked what I was about to ask.
Councillor Thafer.
It's unfair, Councillor Moore. I'm just trying to understand as well. Then the highway assessment was made fully, I'm correct, and predict up to the 450 houses built on the development.
Yes. So with access, part of this outline, they have to demonstrate that they can get the amount of development away from a highways terms.
Including Hancock and Kerholm as well in the prediction.
It is, yes.
I may be wrong, then in revision B on the 23rd January, it doesn't show the Hancock and Kerholm specifically.
Revision B of what, sorry?
Of 23rd January.
But revision B of what document?
Of that report.
I'll have to double check on that one.
Have you got a reference more detailed than that for us?
I think
well,
it'll be there.
It's one of that highway assessment. Not on the revision B, it's not showing that prediction. It's a figure 3 in non-technical summary. Because to be fair, it's like if anyone lives in Shrewsbury, extra, let's say, even houses on that road, it's.
Yeah, so the modelling, it doesn't look at every single junction. It looks at key junctions and it looks at traffic flows going through those junctions. So the modelling won't necessarily pick up on the exact junction point of where the care home is, but the traffic flows have assumed the added trip rates through what the care home development will bring, going through those prior key junctions that are considered. So it's not shown on the figure, you're right, but then, you know, the junctions 5, 3 and 4 are, because they were considered key junctions to be considered within the model. And that model will then take into account existing future committed flows.
My understanding is that the key junction, it will be Cotton Hill, Chester Street and Audi Roundabout on that area.
Yeah, we've got, so along Ellesmere Road, there's junction 1, 2, 18, 3, technically 4, 5, 6, 7.
And you're happy with all of that modeling and prediction which it showed?
Our highways officer, as you know, as I say, has been in discussions with the applicants throughout the process and is happy with all of the scoping of the junctions and has raised no objection to the modelling results.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members, we probably need to move towards some proposals. If nobody is indicating, then I am going to propose a deferment, but specifically on the issue of seeing if we can secure some more detail around the active travel options, in particular to support access to education to the north of the site and into the town centre. That's my proposal at the moment. Do we have any other proposed? Blimey, loads of hands up now. I think I saw Councillor Davis first.
So I would support your recommendation, particularly looking at schools and having a more detailed approach where these children are going to go to schools, particularly as we have no school placements in sort of Shrewsbury for secondary schools. But thank you.
So Davis, that wasn't my proposal, because I do absolutely accept the officer's point that in terms of allocation of school places, that's a SIL issue, and I don't think it's an issue we can deal with. I think we can specifically deal with the issue of active travel access to the existing school network, and I think that is a specific concern that I think I would like to see more detail on in order to find this acceptable. We've been down this road before, haven't we, committee, where we've deferred and then we've litigated a whole load of different reasons. We do need to be very precise on what we might be deferring over, and my proposal is that it's specifically, especially given that we know that there is ongoing discussion. I think we want to see more detail from those ongoing discussions, and with ambition to see detail which satisfies us that there are good, safe routes for walking and cycling to the local school network. Councillor Dartnell, I think you also indicated, and then I'll come to Councillor.
I did. I was offering to second your deferral proposal on those grounds.
I'll go to Councillor. Let's go through all the councillors and then we'll come back to the officers. Yes, so I can't remember who's next.
Getting back to my last major point, I would like to add to those requirements. I appreciate there's 338 pages of data that I can't just watch and break out, obviously. However, we do have modelers who do understand this and can break out specific aspects. So if the issues we've all discussed, North West Relief Road, Gyratory, or the Chester Street loop, as it will become, with and without, and combinations thereof, if we can have that provided also to know the exact impact on traffic flows at those areas, as well as the active travel information, please.
Okay, I will come to officers, but at the moment I'm minded to take that as an amendment to expand the reasons for the deferral, which we'll come back to making sure that it's clear. Councillor Riley, did you want to come in as well?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Riley. Another amendment to possibly include model in the A49. I think that's important.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. You can't have two amendments on the table at the same time.
You're probably correct.
Can I add that to my amendment?
Okay.
849 with the locations I said already.
So just to clarify before I come back to offices. So at the moment, the proposal there's a proposal from myself which has been seconded, which is a specific deferral around the active travel issue. There's an amendment which is that deferral should also seek further clarification on the impact on the wider network, taking into account the possible impact of Shrewsbury moves. Would that be an accurate way of putting your amendment?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. Officers, would you like to comment on those proposals at this stage?
Thank you. I'll take your first proposal. With respect, the actual detail of the active travel mitigation is not a consideration that we need to necessarily bog ourselves down is at outline stage. All we need to know is the level of contribution reasonable and proportionate based on the scale of development. As to what that then delivers is not a matter which needs to prevent or delay the granting of this application. So I think we need to get to a point where either members are happy with the level of contribution or they're not, rather than deferring it to see further detail. As to the modelling data, I think, our highways officer, without wanting to sound like a stuck record, they've raised no objection. We have to be very mindful that we're not seeking applicants to undertake disproportionate amounts of work. They've scoped with us. They've done the job that they were meant to do. We've signed off on it, and we've said that it fits within our modelling in terms of what we would expect for a development of this scale to do and how it impacts Shrewsbury. We cannot expect them to look at every single scenario or junction across Shrewsbury town centre. It's just not feasible. Modelling is it's an incredibly timely and expensive process. So we need to make sure that all of our asks are proportionate. I would have to say that we would not think that that is a proportionate ask to go back and say they need to do further modelling. Else we would have done that at the scoping stage.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to take a couple of comments. First of all, on Councillor Mallon's amendment, and then we shall have to make a decision on that, and then I'll take some comments on the proposal from myself and Councillor Dartnell, and then we'll take a vote on that, and then depending on the outcome, we'll see whether we need further proposals. Councillor Ebbs. Okay, well that's going to have to wait. Okay, so comments first of all then on the amendment from Councillor Mallon. I'm not seeing any hands, so I'm going to say that I am unfortunately not going to support that. I do think that it is disproportionate, and I think that if I think once again I think we're at risk of dragging in wider issues which are beyond the scope of our decision making. I'm afraid, much as I appreciate that the developing story of transport in Shrewsbury is a really important one for us. I think in the context of this application, we can't expect the applicants to be modelling all of that. So I'm going to be opposing that particular amendment. Any other speakers on the amendment? I'm happy for the supporters to come back before we take a vote on it.
It's not so much what the applicant does, it's what our highways officers do with that and whether they find that adequate or if they need to do additional modelling themselves. And I think as Shropshire Council Highways, with the upcoming Shropshire Council initiatives, that should have been considered. This is near-term work, it's not something out in the distance, so it's disappointing that we're not seeing that somewhere and presented to us positively.
Okay, I'm going to take a couple of officer comments before I move to a vote.
Thank you, Chair. Emma Green, Planning Manager. I just want all members to just be aware and thinking about when you're looking at voting on this, that you are considering all of the planning balances and all of the weights in that. You've got to be certain for a deferral that the issue relating to active travel is enough to weigh in your decision making that outweighs some of the other benefits that we've put in the report. You've got to consider it all in the round, all of the issues that are in the report and what is this deferred issue. The level of weight you're going to attribute to that to require this to be a referral. Just wanted to put that out there in your consideration as you're carry on the debate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Rowley.
Right, a question for both Tadpole and Emma. Is it fair to ask the question of the administration to give us a definitive answer on their proposals regarding the North West Relief Road? Because at the moment we don't know what's happening with that. And I think it's a big key factor in this and development going forward. And that's what's really holding me at the moment. And I need to know that I'm right in doing that because I don't want to get it wrong.
We can only go on what's in front of us, and it's paused. So we've had this application in for some time when North West Relief Road was progressing, and there was an assessment done initially in the application with that. Now we're at the point where it's paused and the application has proved, they've gone away and done the work to prove that if the North West Relief Road doesn't go ahead, our highways team are satisfied that the site can go ahead and would not have a detrimental impact on the town. So I think on both, they've shown through the process of the application that with the North West Relief Road this site can work, and without it, it can. So that's all the planning committee and the planning department can do, is have they cover the scenarios. You know, I appreciate the point you're making about having a decision, but we've done what we can as a department to make sure that the applicants tick the boxes that it can function with or without the road.
Okay, I'm minded to move to a vote on the amendment. So the amendment is effectively to expand the scope of the deferral to take into account the wider the impact on the wider highways network beyond what's currently been assessed. I think. Are you happy with that wording? Okay, can I see those in favour of that amendment? Okay, and those against that amendment? You're gonna have to. Somebody's gonna have to count that because I missed that. Can we? Let's take that again. Those in favour of the amendment, please. That's 5. And those against that amendment. 4. Okay, so that amendment passes. So that's amendment to the original motion, which was to defer on the basis of seeking further clarification on the active travel options. And just I'm just going to speak to that, if that's okay, just to respond to the officers on that. I think for me, the reason for that, in terms of this application, is that I would only really be satisfied that this is a sustainable site, given the constraints on active travel, knowing the Ellesmere Road well, if we could find a way to make active travel a realistic option beyond the site to education sites and to other parts of town. I think that's a key element in whether or not this is a sustainable site in my mind. That's why I think it's important that further investigation and further detail comes forward to us. That's my reasoning for that. So we have effectively a motion which has been amended, so which is a deferral for 2 reasons. Before we move to a vote, I will give officers one more chance to just respond on any of that.
Can we just be explicitly clear what the 2 amendments are? Because there've been so many discussions. I want everybody to be clear on what they are.
So I'll try and express it, and then we'll see if I got it right. So the first reason for the deferral is to seek further assurances that there are going to be appropriate active travel routes beyond the site, in particular to allow safe active travel access to education in the north and into the cycle network within Herringate in the south. And that's
Can I just get you to expand on what you mean by seek assurances?
Well, we want to know that it is possible for the active travel contributions to achieve those aims, because in my mind it's not necessarily possible to do that given the nature of the Ellesmere Road.
Why is that the responsibility of the applicant?
Because that to me determines whether this is a sustainable site or not.
Can I just set out where, you know, your deferral's on the table at the minute for active travel reasons. That's absolutely fine, but I think we need to be explicitly clear here that the applicant is offering a package of mitigation that includes a financial contribution that is to be secured through a 106, and then that sits in a pot that the council maintain and are responsible for. So it'd be for the council to deliver any active travel improvements within the wider residential areas. So it's not necessarily for the applicant to be able to demonstrate that it can be delivered. We've set out what our contribution rates are. They're willing to enter into that agreement to contribute. So they've met their requirements in terms of mitigating their harm or mitigating their impact from an active travel perspective.
I take your point. So just to respond, so two points. First of all, Active Travel England are offering to support further work to see what mitigation can be put in place. That's not necessarily that's not necessarily a demand on the developer. That's a demand on the council to seek ways to improve the situation. To give a somewhat facetious hypothetical, if the development was on the moon, it wouldn't matter how big the contribution was. You still would not be able to put in the active travel mitigation that would be appropriate. That's my point. It's not really whether there's enough money. It's whether actually there's a workable scheme which that money can achieve.
That's not the responsibility of the applicant. You know, the section 106 is worded such that we receive these pots of money. If we don't deliver those works within a specified time frame, we pay it back. So it's incumbent on the council that they are able to deliver the works that they are seeking to do through the 106 contributions. So there are a series of tests we have to satisfy ourselves in order to seek a contribution through a 106. And in the fact that officers are recommending a package of contributions, those tests have been met. So it would then be down to the council to deliver what those improvements are. I just can't see how the applicant can provide us further assurances to that effect, and that's my concern with the deferral as currently drafted.
Okay, I'll have one more go, and then I'll see if anybody else can help us with this, because it's true. I absolutely take your points. I don't think my suggestion in the amendment, in the proposal, is necessarily to seek those assurances from the applicant. I think it is to seek those assurances through work with ATE, with our new active travel officer, so that we can assure ourselves as a committee that this is a sustainable development. Any other? Okay. And then the second was which has been accepted by the committee, was to seek, and again, I suspect this is more from highways than it is from the developer, to seek further detail in order to assure ourselves that the impact on the wider highway network is such that this is a sustainable development.
So just to clarify, that's purely you want confirmation that the local highways authority do not require any further assessment work. It's as simple as that.
And it was just specific, I think, in my motion that it gave qualitative, specific information on the hotspots. So those access areas that would have been replaced by the Northwest Relief Road, up as far as the A49 and into town for the gyratory and potentially for a loop, which is coming. Modelling of that. I understand that that may never happen, but it's still the plan. This is a plan to happen. I would like to know all the potential outcomes of that in terms of increase in traffic flows at those hotspots. And that should be information you can derive from that modelling. Otherwise, I don't see the point of the modelling if you cannot extract useful information supplied to officers. That doesn't need you to be an expert in the modelling methodology.
Sorry, Chair, wasn't a vote on that amendment put down.
No, that amendment was carried. Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah. So just to once again clarify, I think in cases of both amendments, effectively we're not actually making particular demands on the developers. We are seeking assurances from Shropshire Council that it has satisfied itself or can satisfy itself that the development is sustainable on highways grounds and on active travel grounds, effectively.
I mean, Chair, I'm not quite sure how we're going to say, can you, our internal consultees have said that they're satisfied with the information. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to. Are you sure that you were right the first time that we asked you, or maybe you need to think again? What did you? There's no new information for them to consider, so I'm not sure what the officers are being asked internally in the council to go away and do.
I will come to Councillor Raleigh, but just to ask officers then, in a hypothetical situation, if we are more than unhappy with a consultee's submission, what are we meant to do? Just accept it?
No, you don't have to accept it, but you would need to give us some suggestion as to why you differ to that view.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Raleigh?
Yeah, Chair, if I just reiterate my points. You told us that the modelling, we saw the modelling on the major junctions up to the Battlefield roundabout, and the point we were making with that wider network is actually, those real ways out of town, which is the A49, the A5, and that's what we tend to. We want to see how that A49 is affected. That hasn't been included in the modelling. We've been told that. And that's what I correct me if I'm wrong, Chair, but that's what I feel we need to see. We've seen the internal, inside the town centre, or we're not seeing that. It's fine that traffic reaches the Battlefield roundabout, and it's like, we're not bothered what happens with it after. The fact that it just clogs up the A49 totally is a serious consideration for us, and that we need to think about, because right now that is the only way south out of town.
Okay, I'm minded to move to a vote. I think we're not going to reach an agreement with officers on this, because the officers are recommending the acceptance. That's in the nature of the committee. I think we have got as far as we can in terms of clarifying what it is that we want to see and why we are looking for the deferral. I'm looking effectively no longer to the planning officers but to the legal officer. If you're satisfied that there is a wording there that we can live with, then I'm going to move it to a vote.
I'm with you. So we have a motion to defer on the basis of seeking further clarification on the active travel points and seeking further information from Highways for detailed impact on the wider Highways network. Is that correct as to what you want?
I still think that's too vague from our point of view to go back to consultees, and to give the applicant fair guidance of what they need. I think the active travel, there was the point about linking to existing schools, which I think is something that there is a bit of clarity on, but the other bit I don't think we've quite bottomed out yet, and that's what are we asking people to go away and sort out?
Okay.
I think Councillor Raleigh was suggesting it's up to the A49, but then I think Councillor Mallon was also talking about the gyratory in the town centre. So
I see 4 hotspots there. That's not a lot they ask for. Those 4 hotspots were connected to the wider network. That's all the clarification we want. So A4 top of Ellesmere Road, round the A49, and then south.
Sorry, could you talk slower, Councillor Mallon?
Sorry.
I'm going to write this down so we don't have to keep repeating ourselves.
Okay, you take the phone.
Top of Ellesmere Road.
Yeah, and then across to the A49. So that's part of the same profile. That's to the north.
So that's 1.
And then to the south, Coton Hill, Chester Street, the gyratory, and the potential impact of the Chester Street Castleford Gates loop, which is part of the Shrewsbury Moose plan, which might not be in the existing modelling, but is quite pertinent.
And which is a material consideration.
Yeah.
You were indicating.
Said it was. Sorry, it's Kim Brown, solicitor. It was basically what I was going to say, similar to what Tabitha was saying, just about the clarity of what actually it was that we wanted to go back. Because, like the planning officer said, our technical consultees, they've given their position, so just by deferring it, it's not necessarily going to achieve anything in addition. But now we've got a bit more clarity. I think, are we just trying to establish whether our highways have considered those areas?
Yeah, if they've got good solid modelling for all the issues or the potential issue of the Chester Street loop, then we need time to absorb that and also absorb the, and I'm complete with the chair here on this, I've ridden and jogged up Ellesmere Road as a nightmare. So, you know, it is difficult to implement that. We need to know more about the hows of this. We know there's funding, you know, but, you know, if you can't spend it, what's the point? So I think on both, it's just better clarity on the underlying data and information and time to then see if there's a way forward for both those aspects.
Thank you. I will let you come back, but I'm going to come to Councillor Dartnell and Councillor Davis first, and then get this.
Councillor Mallon just touched on what I was going to say, really, that this area is, it's incredibly crowded traffic wise, isn't it? It's very intense traffic, and we're introducing or potentially introducing a whole load more traffic into a situation. And I think that's why people are perhaps not convinced on the committee of the highways assessment that it's okay.
Thank you.
So I think perhaps we should mention that underlying intense traffic situation as well.
So I've only got two areas here from the, sorry, I feel like we've got sidetracked. I've only got two areas that you were talking about, 4 hotspots, and that also the highways officer is sending us something through saying this information is in the report.
But you've got
300 something page report.
You've got the roundabout at the top of Ellesmere Road by the Audi garage. Can't remember what that island's called.
Yeah.
And then you turn right, you go across Battlefield to join the A49, and that's another problem. They sort of join together, but they both, we would like data on traffic flow increases or changes or not there. And then coming south, Coton Hill roundabout.
Roundabout.
Coton Hill junction.
Junction. Yeah, there's no roundabout.
Oh, is there any roundabout north of it?
Yeah.
Sorry,
you're talking about
but we mentioned earlier that Coton Hill is a choke point. Yeah. So that's of interest. And
so,
then,
should I just clarify? Are you talking about the junction where you then turn off to go towards Bass Church, or are you talking about the junction further down? The main junction in the town centre.
So Coton Hill.
Yeah,
junction,
Bass Church.
The Wigsman.
Bass Church junction you're talking about, right?
And then
that one has been considered the Bass Church junction.
That's
sorry, which one, Ollie? That's the junction.
That's Halscut Lane.
Yeah. So the Audi one and the Battlefield one were in the assessment.
Okay. And again, that's going to be part of the qualitative response. But the key one is down at Chester Street, Castle Foregate, what's currently the gyratory, which will then be converted to a loop. We want the data on it both at the gyratory and as a loop preventing access to the town and the removal of Smithfield.
Effectively, the impact of Shrewsbury moves on.
So the first 3 you mentioned, so the roundabouts at the Audi garage, the roundabout, I think it's Battlefield they call it, isn't it? Yeah. And so those have all been done in the assessment.
Can I just stop that, because I think that will change if you have the loop created at Chester Street, because all of a sudden traffic that could have gone one way is only gone out the other way. That's the fundamental issue that then impacts on those other hotspots. That's why I brought them all together, because that will change if you build that loop. We just want to see the modelling, because we will also be considering whether we go ahead with Shrewsbury moves. So there's a more wider decision-making process to be done here. We can't treat these, I know you want to treat these plans in isolation, but when it comes to things like highways, they simply don't exist in isolation. There are other things going on, and one of them has already been mentioned in there, the North West Relief Road. So in principle, we can consider issues such as the existence or non-existence of Schrodinger's Road, Northwest Road, and the existence or non-existence of Shrewsbury Moves and that loop. So we want the modelling on the addition and subtraction of both those road plans.
So the Northwest Relief Road was a committed scheme, so we can do the modelling on the with and without scenario because we knew that was at one point in time we knew that was going to happen. Whereas the future gyratory within the Shrewsbury Move strategy is neither committed nor allocated nor planned. You know, it's in a visionary document that sits within the council, is not part of the local development framework. Yes.
That's not an adopted Shropshire
It's not
plan.
policy. It's not a committed scheme. It's not. We've not got a worked up scheme of what the technical engineering data would look like. Or the point I was going to make is we can certainly put this to the applicant and ask them to go away and do their model, remodel. They may say no. We may bring it back next committee, and we're in the current same position. You'd then have to take a judgment as to whether that lack of information is sufficient to warrant a refusal.
I'd still like to ask. If they want to do this, they want to work with us, that they should be motivated to help us out here. Otherwise, they're tacitly accepting that this can't work in no circumstances.
We're revisiting the debate. The vote was one in terms of asking for further clarification on the impact on the wider network, including those particular pinch points, and asking for clarification on how the modelling would work with reference to Shrewsbury Moves. I take officers' points that we may not get an answer, but I think we've now clarified what it is that we're asking for, and I think we've clarified what we're asking for in terms of active travel. Specifically access to education using active travel routes. Go on, Councillor Davis. Then I'm going to move to
I agree entirely what my fellow councillors have said, but you have assumed it's summer all the time in Shrewsbury.
No, I'm not going to take a weather discussion now. I think
I'm thinking, it's the flooding.
We cannot introduce. I've made this point before, members. We cannot introduce new issues at this stage in a debate. It really isn't reasonable. This is a 5-year-old application, and the flooding issues have certainly been. So I'm going to move it to a vote. Okay, so those in favour of the motion as it stands, which has been amended, can I see those in favour? Are you doing a roll call, or are we traditionally we do a roll call? Okay, over to you. Actually, you can if you want to.
Okay. So we've got a motion to defer the application on the basis of seeking further clarification on the active travel points, specifically with linking to existing school routes, and seeking further details of impact on wider highway network, specifically in mind of the pinch points we've listed: top of Ellesmere Road, across the A49 to the south, Coton Hill, Chester Street and Lower Castle, Foregate Loop, and modelling really the impact on Shrewsbury Moves. Okay, so if you can please confirm if you're for or against, or if you want to abstain. So Councillor Andy Davis, Rosemary Darton, for, Greg Ebbs,
Against.
Adam Clay, for, Gary Groves,
Against.
Mark Owen,
For,
Carl Rowley,
For,
Brendan Mallon,
For,
and Councillor Davis.
For.
So we have 7 for and 2 against.
Okay, committee, thank you very much. Right, that took us an hour and a half. I propose a comfort break for 5 minutes, and to allow members of the public who came for that particular item to leave at this stage if they wish to, and we'll recommence at 15:37, if I can do my maths. on to the next item on the agenda, if I can find it, is item 6, proposed residential development in land north of Olden Lane, right near Eleven Towns. So over to officers.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This one rests with me again. As you can see on screen, this is an outline application for 5 self-built dwellings to include access and scale only, all other matters reserved. The map on site shows the application boundary in red and then additional land owned by the applicant in blue. This is very much of a similar map, but this is a bit more helpful in kind of setting out surrounding land uses. We can see the more orangey beige colours on the map are existing residential properties or existing built up areas, and then we've got the greener, the agricultural fields surrounding. So the application site does sit just outside of Wrighton 11 Towns development boundary. However, in terms of the local scale, the local context street scene, it is very much an infill plot. It has housing to both the east and west. Although it is only outlined, the applicants have provided us with an indicative site plan to demonstrate how the quantum, i.e. 5 dwellings, could be achieved on site. We've got a very kind of regular plot division and dwelling placement. Access is served from the south off Olden Lane via a private drive and then individual parking areas. There's an area of public open space to the front, so in between the highway and the private drive, and then 5 individual plots. So as members will be aware from the site walkover, the topography of the site slopes quite steeply upwards. There's a lot of changing levels. So this site section plan just demonstrates, how the development platforms will sit within the topography and what that means for any private amenity space. So we can see that there'll be a flat platform on which the houses sit, and then there'll be a flat garden or level area, patio area with the house of varying sizes. That detail has not yet come forward. And then the remainder of the private rear gardens will slope back up towards the north. With scale being a matter for determination today, the applicants have provided a street scene. So one of the conditions within the report is that scale is capped at a maximum of 2 stories. So this street scene just demonstrates what that would do in terms of respecting and responding to the existing built environment. We've got elevated properties on the left-hand side, and then there's a graduated step down until the eastern neighbouring property is back at highway level. This is the plan to show visibility displays. So, we had a good stand at the access point on the site visit, looked in both directions and even walked up way beyond the site to see what level of visibility was achievable. As is set out in the report, they're not able to achieve visibility displays commensurate to the road conditions. The site sits within 40-mile-an-hour zone. The 30-mile-an-hour is just to the eastern side of the access point, and the visibility displays fail in that sense. So, as I've said, just talk through some of the. Sorry, go back to the coloured layout. So, in terms of technical consultees, highways have objected because of visibility space not achievable. In response to that, the applicant has tried to look at what mitigation measures could be provided to get an access point which is commensurate with today's standards. To that effect, they were suggesting relocating the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit further west. So this site was entirely within the 30-mile-an-hour zone, and then also building a build out close to the access point, bit of a give way island, so it would have to slow drivers down. Our Highways Authority were not happy with that arrangement because it would create a somewhat confused street arrangement that a driver would not necessarily expect in this rural location. So the Highways have maintained their objection. However, I acknowledge that visibility displays are not commensurate. My opinion is it won't result in an unsafe access point, and that is the test from a highways point of view. We can only prevent applications on highways grounds if it will result in unsafe conditions. I'm not convinced that test is met. Other objections from consultees raised were from the tree team. A lot of the site had been cleared. There's a lot of low-lying self-seeded scrub remaining within the site, but there was a good level of tree cover around the perimeter edge. The applicants have provided a tree survey plan which does identify and categorise those trees through A to B and C, and it does show the retention of all the existing trees that we saw today. There were no further trees to be removed other than within the access visibility displays. The tree officer has raised concern with the two trees in this far left corner, so that are straddling the red line boundary across the north. So it's essentially within Unit 1 and on the border of Unit 2 and 3. So their concern is that because they are quite well established and mature trees, there would be the threat that, once dwellings are occupied and people are living within there, that the tree canopy may result in adverse amenity, leaf drop, loss of light, and it may make their lives short-lived because they get cut down or something. Whilst that is a valid concern, equally some people like to have trees in their garden. They are on the northern boundary, so in terms of sun path, they wouldn't actually interfere too much with the sunlight. There may be some overshadowing effect at very at specific times within the day and also year. But I'm not of the opinion that it's sufficient enough to warrant a refusal on amenity grounds. All other consultees raised no objection. So, as I've kind of set out in my conclusion, it is a very much on balance decision that officers are making today, recommendation that officers are making today. There are identified harms, but then there are also positive benefits, which in the officer's opinion are able to, they tip the balance towards approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 3 speakers. The first speaker is David White, local resident. Good afternoon, David. You have 3 minutes from when you start speaking. If you press the button on the right-hand side, it should light up. Of course, yes. Please do. Yeah,
can you hear me?
Yes.
That's all that matters. Wait a minute.
You've switched it off again now.
Yes, I'm starting.
Oh yeah, you don't need to worry about that. Your timing starts when you start speaking, not when the light comes on.
Chair, members of the committee, the site history is well documented, with highway safety a major factor in the past 3 refusals. The current one for 5 houses has the case officer stating a safe and suitable access can be provided. But how is this possible, as nothing has changed? That statement implies that previous planning officers must all have been wrong. Point 76 in the report states the Highway Authority have not accepted the applicant's proposed traffic calming scheme or access junction arrangement, but strangely goes on to say, even without such measures, the access as revised can provide a safe and suitable access. What does as revised mean, having just said the Highways Authority have not accepted the proposals? So what is new and not been shared? 11th of November 24, Highways said earlier concerns have been raised and the current submission is not considered to have satisfactorily addressed these concerns. concerns, and no robust highway justification for the visibility displays has been submitted. On the 11th of April 25, Highway said to further information being received, as submitted, it's considered the application has not demonstrated a satisfactory access can be provided to the development, so already 2 more refusals. On the 11th of September 25, Highways asked the applicant for a stage 1 road safety audit to be undertaken, but no sign of it. In spite of the above, the officer's judgment doesn't think that traffic calming measures are necessary, and the current state of the substandard access is fine, but crucially does not provide any evidence or details of how a safe and suitable access can be achieved. Being against all current highway advice in this case and the previous 3 ones, I believe it's incumbent for the officer to back the judgment and publish drawings showing what a safe and compliant access is and submit it to the Highway Authority for comments. Put simply, it's either safe or it isn't. There's no halfway. Are the current proposals for the access safe, suitable and compliant? No. They are substandard by any known highway criteria. It would be a perverse decision by the local planning authority to condone, support and then impose the use of a substandard and unsafe access upon all users of this site, making them vulnerable forever. The safety and welfare of the residents and visitors alike to the site are a material consideration and should carry a significant weight. If they cannot be safe exiting from their own homes into a 40-mile-an-hour zone, what chance is there for passing traffic and pedestrians? The MPPF does not say it's okay to put a few lives at risk and hope.
You're coming to the end of your time.
Finally, is it possible for the 3 case officers all to be wrong?
Thank you very much. Any questions to the speaker from members? No. Any officer comments at this stage? No. Okay. Thank you very much. Next speaker is Councillor Mervyn Isles. Once again, you have 3 minutes from when you start speaking.
Good afternoon. I'm here on behalf of the Parish Council to object to this planning application and to persuade you to vote against it. Our first objection is that the proposed site is outside the development area for the village. The applicant has submitted 3 previous applications for this site which were refused. This site did not meet the criteria for new development in open countryside. We understand that government directives and the lack of a current local plan have led to the consideration of sites which previously would have been ruled out. However, the Planning Office still have an obligation to select sites which are suitable, safe and have a good chance of producing quality housing. Brighton 11 Towns already has 3 sites within its development area which have planning permission for new houses, but after years on the market have failed to attract the interested developers. It would be pointless to add another white elephant. The site is known locally as the sand pit. It was previously used for sand extraction. Is this really offering a good foundation to build houses? The site slopes steeply. The sectional drawings show houses with a front doorstep 5 metres above street level, a back garden boundary which is above the height of the eaves of the house, and a terrace wall of 4 metres in height within 5 metres of the house. These are engineering challenges which would challenge the skills of an experienced developer and would add significantly to building costs. Yet the site is being proposed as self-build. Any normal developer would select an open field plot in Baschurch or Oswald Street rather than this one. Also, the developer suggests this is an infill site which blends with the existing street scheme. This is patently not the case when the buildings have doorsteps up to 5 metres above the street level. The developer's plans show hedges and trees along the roadside edge of the site, which would not be allowed in any sort of visibility display. Finally, I raise the subject of safety. For the previous 3 applications and this one, the local highways authority has objected on the grounds that the appropriate visibility displays at the site entrance cannot be achieved. The case officer has chosen to override this. I ask the committee, if you were exiting this site, would you be comfortable knowing that there is a 15% chance that an unseen car coming around the corner is exceeding the speed limit and unable to stop? The case officer dismisses this risk and adds that further traffic measures are not appropriate. If you, as the Northern Planning Committee, pass this application, you are taking on the responsibility for this safety judgment. If you are not comfortable with this, then please vote against the application.
We're running out.
There will be better and safer sites to meet the planning directives.
Thank you very much. Any questions to Parish Councillor? No. Any comments from officers at this stage? No. Okay. Thank you very much. And our next speaker is Councillor Robert Jones, the local member. You have 5 minutes from when you start speaking.
Chair, members, thank you for inviting me to speak. I ask you today to refuse this outline application for 5 self-built dwellings at land north of Olden Lane. The site lies outside the defined development boundary and does not meet any countryside exception criteria as acknowledged in the officer's report. The site has been refused on 3 previous occasions on precisely these and other grounds. The applicant also claims that the land is brownfield. The officer correctly rejects this. Quarrying ceased long ago and the land is naturally regenerated and it now reads as part of the rural landscape, and recent vegetation clearance does not alter its status under the MPPF. But highway safety is the key issue and remains unresolved. The local highways authority continues to object, stating that adequate visibility displays cannot be achieved within land under the applicant's control, and they have also requested a stage 1 road safety audit which has not been provided. The applicant's own drawings show available visibility displays of 2.4 metres by 102 metres to the east and 2.4 by 107 metres to the west. This is materially below the 120 metre stopping sight distance required for the measured traffic speeds on the road. The speed data is particularly concerning. The applicant's own survey shows the 85th percentile speeds of 40.8 miles per hour eastbound and 39.7 miles per hour westbound. This means a 15%, that's hundreds of vehicles on the day of the survey, were travelling faster than this. The suggestion that this makes the access acceptable is misleading. The access is located on the inside of a bend with a changing gradient, where visibility is already compromised. It would take only 1 vehicle travelling too fast to collide with a car emerging from the site, with potentially serious consequences. The applicant proposes mitigation in the form of build-out and westward extension of the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, but the officer agrees that the build-out would be unnatural and inappropriate on this rural stretch of road. More importantly, the officer also concludes that moving the speed limit is unlikely to materially reduce the actual speed of traffic and therefore is not justified. That conclusion aligns with the speed survey itself, which shows that drivers already exceed the existing limit. Simply moving a sign a short distance west does not change driver behaviour or deliver safe visibility displays in practice. So we are left with a proposal that fails to meet visibility standards, relies on unproven and ineffective mitigation, and is opposed by the Highway Authority. Under the MPPF, development should be refused where it results in an unacceptable impact on highway safety, and this scheme clearly does. In addition, the council's tree officer has raised a formal objection. The steep side levels would require extensive excavation, threatening important boundary trees and resulting in overshadowed and impractical gardens with little scope for replacement planting or biodiversity gain. This is a further material harm. While the tilted balance applies due to the housing land supply position, paragraph 11D of the MPPF is clear. Permission should still be refused where the adverse impacts significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. Here, the benefits are modest, just 5 dwellings with no clear evidence of unmet self-build demand. Against this are serious and unresolved highway safety risks, substandard visibility, and excessive vehicle speeds, no road safety audit, and environmental and amenity harm. The proposal introduces real and demonstrable danger onto the highway. The tilted balance does not justify approving development where access arrangements are unsafe. For these reasons, I respectfully urge members to refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions to Robert? No? Any comments at this stage from officers? Yes.
Just to clarify that a road safety audit is only required if work is being done to the highway. So had officers decided that the build out and the speed relocation was required to make it acceptable, then an RSA would have been required. As officers have put forward a scheme which says no, we don't think that is needed, no RSA is needed because no changes to the highway are happening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And our final speaker is Joe Salt, the agent. Hi, Joe, you have 3 minutes from when you begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm here to speak in support of the outline application at Olden Lane in Wright and Leventowns. The recommendation is one of approval following the assessment of the proposal against the council's current planning policies. The proposal is for 5 self-built dwellings on an otherwise unused piece of land between existing residential development. Whilst the site technically lies outside the development boundary of Wright and Leventowns, due to the council's lack of 5-year land supply, the sites close to development boundaries in sustainable locations must be considered. The site is only 30 metres away from the village's development boundary. Wright and Leventowns also has a local under-provision of housing, as the Pentons haulage site was meant to provide 80 houses by last year, but has not come forward. There is therefore an immediate local need for housing in the village, which is a significant material consideration. The site is connected to the village via a footpath and also benefits from a bus service within safe walking distance. Furthermore, the proposal will infill an otherwise vacant parcel of land within an existing ribbon of development. The site is clearly sustainable in planning terms, and following its use as a quarry cannot provide a practical alternative use other than residential. During the preparation of the most recent local plan, the site was identified as having medium-term potential for residential development. Due to the housing pressures the council now face, it is logical for the site to come forward as it would be developed at some point in the future anyway. With regards to the existing access, and I appreciate members have heard a lot about access during the past 2 applications, the access is positioned where the speed limit drops from 40 to 30 miles an hour. The minimum visibility displayed for the 40 mile an hour stretch is 60 metres, which is achievable, and the 30 mile an hour stretch is at least 43 metres. This is to the existing speed limits. With a slight reconfiguration of the access and cutting back of the existing vegetation, but retaining the trees, these visibility displays can be met. The difference with this application compared to previous applications is that a highways report and a topographical survey has been produced to show that these visibility displays are achievable. There is an objection from the highways officer because cars, in basic terms, are travelling above 30 miles an hour when they are leaving the village. Traffic calming measures have been proposed if required. The issue with visibility in these areas is that it may not meet the exact road conditions. However, it needs to be completely unacceptable harm to the highways. As set out in the case officer's report, the proposal must be assessed in the round, with the most weight being given to the provision of 5 additional houses. Any harm that would arise from the development would have to significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. The planning balance has been undertaken and the case officer has recommended the application for approval. Thank you.
Spot on. Thank you very much indeed. Any questions to the agent from members? No. Any comments from officers at this stage? No. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll open it up to members. Councillor Rowley.
I just have a couple of points to make. The 60 metres visibility on the 40 mile an hour stretch, we just confirm that is correct. That's what is required, 60 metres.
So the current standards for a 40 mile an hour speed limit, 120 metres. 120 metres. Yeah, that must admit, sorry, Chair, can I address the agent?
Please do.
That did throw me a bit, sorry. Can you just confirm what the visibility display distances are in both the east and west direction that you can achieve based upon the standards for that speed road condition?
Actually, I will ask you to come to the mic just because there are people who may be listening online.
Happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but for a 30-mile-an-hour stretch, 43 metres is required forward visibility, and for 40 miles an hour, 60 metres is required. I think it's in manual for streets, but happy to be.
Yeah, I mean, what's thrown me is that your transport statement, the most recent one, it says there is a visibility display requirement from the access to westbound vehicles of 2.4 by 102 and then eastbound 107. And then the drawing previously submitted and attached demonstrates that visibility displays from the proposed site access onto Olden Lane. This confirmed that visibility is not achievable from the access. So I think there is perhaps some uncertainty as to what the exact requirement of visibility display distance is, but nonetheless, the officer recommendation is in the knowledge that it fails to meet whatever that required distance is.
I'm content. It's 60 metres is achievable. But if we go above 70, then we're starting to hop around that corner, and then that's not. I don't think that is achievable. My other point was, and this is probably a question that most of my colleagues are asking, what's changed? Because we got 3 applications that have been refused, mainly because they went by the standard or they went inside the building boundary, and here we are today with an application really with the same arguments, and nothing seems different to me.
Hang on, let me come back to the officers.
Yeah, I mean, relatively short response to that is that it's set out in the report. We're in a tilted balance scenario. There have been updates to the MPPF. The highway section hasn't changed a huge amount, but where based on our current position, the MPPF paragraph 116 is clear that development should only be refused on highway grounds where it would result in an unacceptable impact on road safety. So my judgment is that it doesn't meet that threshold, and if the debate wishes to go against that, then the members need to be satisfied that that test is met, that there will be an acceptable impact on road safety.
Thank you.
This is open AI, so take it with a pinch of salt, but you can certainly verify this. You've got the manual for streets, guidance for streets in built-up residential areas, and that gives you the smaller value, the 43-metre display. However, the design manual for roads and bridges for higher speed roads outside towns, that gives the 120 metres. So what we need to find out is which of those is applicable to this particular spot. I mean, you might argue the 30 is street because it's in the village, but the 40 is obviously outside the village and open countryside. So can we get some clarity from highways, please?
Yeah, so the 107 and 102 metres, which I mentioned, they've been worked out based on the traffic speed surveys that are undertaken. So the 107 visibility display is in line with the recorded 85th percentile of 40.8 miles per hour for that westbound highway. And then the 102 metre visibility display is in line with the 85th percentile speed of the 39.7 miles per hour. So basically what they're saying is they're able to change the display distances because they've done that survey work, and that is the correct distance they need to achieve. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Councillor Ebbs first before I come back. Yeah.
Councillor Ebbs, is there an opportunity to implement better traffic calming management, such as speed bumps, if this committee was inclined to vote in favour of the application? Are there traffic calming measures which could potentially be implemented to, along with extending the 30-mile-per-hour area?
So I think we have obviously looked at on highway mitigation works quite extensively, and it came to the conclusion that it doesn't reflect the rural nature of this highway stretch. So while speed bumps, they are an option at traffic calming, it wouldn't be something that we would probably look to achieve here. And whether it would achieve the desired effect as well is the unknown. There's no reason why we couldn't look, I suppose, is kind of what I'm saying, but it's whether it's actually going to be a realistic solution to getting an access point that the Highways Authority are satisfied with. You would have thought that it would have already been offered if that, traffic bumps are not that uncommon. So if it was a realistic option, I would have expected it would have been on the table already. It hasn't been. So I can only assume it doesn't achieve the desired effect.
Okay. Can I just encourage members to examine all the issues that have been brought to us in terms of it being outside the development boundary and those other issues? Councillor Rowley.
Yeah, just sorry, one other point as well. We've never really seen an application like this where we're seeing planning permission for an area and then some self-built on it, which will require a bit of the plan. I don't want to come across as stupid or anything like that. If this was to be approved and that's done, I take it each application will not have to go through this process again of having to justify the access.
No, you are right. So with access being a matter for consideration now, if it was to be approved today, that is it. That's the access point. What would come forward is kind of how the on-site parking areas and turning areas are all laid out. That's not set in stone today, but the access arrangement and junction onto the adopted highway would be.
Perfectly acceptable for members to get clarification about the difference between an outline and a reserved matters, so please don't worry about that. Who else has indicated? Councillor Ebbs again.
Thank you. So I'd just like to bring us to the question of sand pits, the sand quarry. Are there structural concerns which this committee should take into account with regards to building houses on a sand quarry? This is something which the Parish Council mentioned before.
Land stability is certainly a material consideration in terms of environmental harm and so on, but in terms of making sure that the buildings are able to stand up without teetering over, it would be a matter for building regulations and making sure that any footings or slabs, foundations are appropriate to what the ground conditions are.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Chair. As far as the outside the boundary is concerned, I think it's been fairly clear from what I've seen of inspectors' reports and with the new NPPF, is it, that it is so close that it would have been, at appeal, it would actually be sent through probably. So the fact that it's at the edge of the village doesn't concern me that much because of what I've seen previously. It is the entrance which bothers me. And it is the fact that when you stand there and you look towards Shotterton, that bend coming round towards you is a concern to me personally. If I was there with my family, I wouldn't trust people to stick to 40 miles an hour because I used to go along that road fairly often going to work at Walford College, and I've seen traffic travelling, dare I say it in public, at 60 miles an hour plus. So it does worry me, and that is really the main worry for me personally. I would have to be assured that the traffic wouldn't come round and cause fatalities. So,
thank you. I'll go to Councillor Davis and then back to Councillor Rowley.
Yeah, I would agree with what Councillor Owen said. Having viewed the site as well, knowing exactly where the location of the access onto the road is, standing back there with the speed of the traffic coming back and forwards, I think it's a rather dangerous situation to have the access there on its account. I do agree with what Highways have actually said. Its account.
Thank you. I'll come to Councillor Rowley, but I'm also minded to invite proposals, given that many people are speaking against the application on the grounds of the road safety and specific issues. Councillor Rowley?
So I was actually going to suggest a proposal. I just want to say firstly, we often see planning application as well as planning applications and stuff like that. And in villages, for example, in my village St Martin's, we see lots of applications. And something I want to see is small infills of land being used. And this is a prime example of that happening. So taking that into account, I'd actually like to propose that we approve this application. I would like to see some clarification on the visibility space. I'm not 100% sure on that, if that's something we can do. But yeah, I'd like to approve the application.
Councillor Rowley, so we'll take that as the proposal for an approval. So can I see a couple of speakers on that proposal? Yes.
I appreciate what Councillor Rowley's saying in terms of the infill, and this is private development. But it'd be good for someone to make some use of that land. I appreciate that as well. If we were to go ahead with that proposal to accept, would we have any power to say have a covenant on the control of that road boundary? Because I believe the boundary is council, but then obviously across the fence is the private property. How do we ensure that mitigations to the display visibility are maintained over time? Once we have 5 separate developers essentially coming in to build their own house in there, will there be any covenant then on them as the future landowners to maintain the front of the site, to maintain visibility? Because I've seen too many sites around my division where it's just been left to grow over, and what was safe displays, well, have gone away, have been overgrown. So is there a mechanism for that?
Yes, to be fair, that's an inadvertent omission on my behalf. There should be a condition which controls the visibility displays to remain unobstructed and free of clutter and at a specified height. So we, subject to members' resolution, I would suggest that be included into the list of conditions.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Ebbs?
So, taking into account what Councillor Rowley was saying, yes, I'm minded to support areas where there's an infill of land between multiple homes. I take into account the comments about the tilted balance, and I do. But and I say I do like to see areas where there's empty land in between multiple homes being filled. The comments made about highways are concerning. I'm wondering if there is an opportunity here for the officers to go to the developer and potentially talk about a 106 agreement to get a certain binding amount of funds to go towards highways work. I think there needs to be a further conversation with highways to see what exactly they would potentially like. Maybe, say, speed bumps might not be doable. Maybe speed cameras potentially to ensure that people adhere to a strict speed limit. I think there's definitely a conversation which could potentially be had.
Thank you. So I think just need to be a bit careful there that we're not getting the applicant to deal with issues outside of their control. It's not the applicant's responsibility to deal with cars speeding. If cars are not following the speed limit, the applicant just has to respond to that within how they devise their site layouts. The section 106 to secure some fundings towards highways works. Again, it would be. I'm not convinced that there would be any tangible benefit as a result of it, because it would only ever be proportionate to the scale of development, and there might just be it's not something we've considered. The recommendation doesn't necessarily think a section 106 contribution is required to make it acceptable, but that's not to say the recommendation is wrong. It could certainly have that within there if it could meet those tests.
Okay, Councillor Davis.
Thank you, I still agree. I think looking at the site this morning to actually put measures in place to make that entrance safe, I think it's going to be a real challenge and not practical. So thank you.
Okay, so I'm minded to move this fairly rapidly to a vote because people aren't indicating. We've got a proposal on the table to accept. Obviously, if that passes, that's the end of the matter. If it doesn't, then we'll have to then consider what our reasons, just to clarify our reasons. Thank you. Does that proposal have a seconder? It does have a seconder.
Can I just clarify that proposal includes the visibility display condition?
Yeah, I did say to if we could just confirm on the conditions on the visibility display. Yeah.
So before we proceed, the 30-mile-an-hour move, was that inherent or is that speculative that the 30-mile-an-hour start point could move west?
It's not something our highways authority would entertain. Because of the traffic survey data demonstrates that it would achieve nothing. So they won't just artificially move a speed limit to suit an applicant. It's got to be within the highway's interest for them to do a TR traffic regulation order, and they have categorically said they will not do that.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, Councillor Owen.
Yeah, Councillor, right. The proposal as it stands is to approve the application and just confirm that the visibility displays are correct and will be maintained in accordance with the application.
Are we? So that's an extra condition?
Yes, but no section 106. I think that's what we want to be clear on.
But the condition would be, do you want to just clarify that for us?
The condition would be to maintain visibility displays and keep them unobstructed and free from obstruction.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Owen first.
Sorry, just pushing that a little bit. How would it be maintained? That's all.
It would be the responsibility of the landowner or the incumbent purchaser of the properties. You know, that condition would stand on the permission for its lifetime. If they're not complying with it, then our enforcement team would be able to take action to seek that any obstructions are cleared. So it wouldn't be necessarily, you know, no. Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
It's a very much standard condition for new visibility displays.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you for that last point.
Same point.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, I'm minded to move that to a vote because I'm not seeing any other proposals and it's been seconded. Okay, can we take a vote?
Okay, so we've got a motion which has been seconded to accept the planning application on the basis of approving conditions for the visibility displays to be maintained in perpetuity. Okay, yeah. So Councillor Andy Davis for or against? Rosemary Dartnell for. Greg Ebbs.
For.
Adam Fafer.
Against.
Harry Groves.
Against.
Mark Owen.
Against.
Carl Rowley.
For.
Brendan Mallon.
Against.
And Julian Dean.
For.
Okay. 4. 5 against, yeah.
So that proposal falls. So we now need to clarify, given that the committee is effectively voting to reject the application, can we just clarify the reasons that we're doing so? Would anybody like to just chip in? I'm assuming it's on the basis that we do regard the traffic, the highway situation to be a danger, effectively.
Absolutely, I'm saying that always and any other reason.
Okay, so yes. So we need a proposal. Okay, so can we have a proposal on that, please, then, to reject on those basis? On that basis,
I'm happy to propose reject on the conditions as stated.
On the basis that we don't accept that this is a safe.
Yes, I stated by the transport.
Yeah. You're seconding, are you? Yeah. Okay. Do you have that? Do you want to add the wording?
Can you say the wording again?
Do you want some assistance?
That would be great. Thank you.
So I think you're basically suggesting that the development would result in an unacceptable impact on highway safety and is therefore not in accordance with local planning adopted policy CS6 MD2 to be accessible and achievable for all. That's fine. You know, that is a robust reason in and of itself. The point I just want to make is that you have to be satisfied that that harm is so significant and demonstrable to outweigh the benefits that are listed within the officer report. And if you're confident with that position, fine.
Okay, so we will take a vote on that proposal then, please. Big bum? Oh, we can do show of hands if you'd rather. Does it? If we not, I think we normally do a corporate roll call. Yeah.
So, proposal then to refuse planning on the basis of the unacceptable impact on the highway safety, not in accordance with the policies. So, for, against, or abstain, please, Andy Davis.
For.
Rosemary Dartnell. Greg Ebbs.
Against.
Adam Pfeiffer.
For.
Gary Groves.
For.
Mark Owen.
For.
Carl Riley.
Against.
Brendan Mallon.
For.
And Julian Dean.
Against.
That's 3. 6, 4, 3 against.
So that's carried. So we're rejecting that application on the grounds stated. Thank you very much. If people wish to leave at this stage before we move on to the next application, I'll give you a minute or two to do so because of the creaky floor. We're just waiting for an officer to return and then we'll continue. Not really. If you're, one officer needed to, take time. But you can stand up. Yeah, we are still live, folks, just to warn you.
Chair, while you
Yes.
deliberate, can I have 30 seconds?
Big pardon?
Can I have 30 seconds, please?
Oh, go on then.
God bless you.
Councillor Ebbs, take the chance. Oh, okay. But just to say again, everybody, we are still live. Dream of timing you. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We'll continue now to item 7, proposed dwelling east of the brewery, Longden Colham, Shrewsbury. Over to officers.
Thank you, Chair. So this application, there has been a late representation received on it that has come in since the late papers. That is from the local main member, Councillor Halliday, and she's just raised a few words that I just bring to your attention. So she does not object in principle to the building on this plot, however considers that the proposed 3-storey building is overbearing to the houses to the left and being higher than the existing roof lines will cause loss of light, overshadowing, and will create a sense of dominance and enclosure. The overbearing nature of the proposal would also impact on the street scene and in the conservation area, including from the road and from views from Quarry Park and Greyfriars Bridge. So I'll just move on to the slides and what this shows. So this is a plot of land which is to the east of the former brewery in Longden Colham. Permission is being sought for the erection of a single dwelling house. Committee should be brought to your attention that there is an extant planning permission for this site for a dwelling house, although that is for a 2-storey building. The site plan demonstrates how the building is going to be set back from the frontage from the building line of the traditional terraced houses that you can see to the east of the development. But it will be projecting forward of the brewery building and dwellings to the west of the development. This position seeks to offer a transition in this existing built form. The limited nature of the frontage will allow for parking, but includes a turntable feature to allow for the easy manoeuvrability, and this is supported by the highways officers. The rear elevation is angled into relation to this change in building lines. The elevational details of the building have been refined during the process of the application in consultation with your Built Heritage Officer's advice, given the sensitive setting in the conservation area, and is considered to be reflective of the industrial heritage of the adjacent brewery building. There are concerns raised by residents in relation to the issues of overlooking and loss of privacy. The rear elevation includes hit and miss panelling to reduce this impact. Views are themselves also over the amenity area of adjacent properties and not into the dwellings themselves. Officers do not consider that this is demonstrably harmful given the interactions of existing properties and the rear gardens are publicly facing onto the river. I'll just show you some slides. That's the inside of the property layout. And this is a photograph of what this site looks like from within the parkland across the rivers. And just draw your attention to how the terrace properties have got gardens which step down at various levels, but the brewery building is all on a single level, and the plot of land that this is to be built on is all on that single level. This is a rear visual that the applicants have presented with the scheme, is seeking to demonstrate how this building seeks to transition the street scene from the scale of the converted industrial building to the traditional terrace properties within the street scene. The following visuals all show, if I move on, show the impact of this from the front. There have been late representations in relation to drainage and flooding matters, but officers are satisfied that an appropriate technical solution can be reached. We are therefore seeking delegated authority to approve the development subject to officers finalising the drainage aspects and imposing any additional conditions as well as those set out in Appendix A. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. There are no speakers on this application, so it's straight over to committee members. Councillor Ebbs.
Thank you. So looking at the present development, I've got no objections to the principle of a new development. However, my understanding is when properties are in conservation area, they have to be in the setting of the area. And I do feel that from the appearance of the property, it's not is not commensurate with the design layout of it, houses neighbouring it, and that's a concern, especially for me, with a property not of a sort of historical style. I grant it's made out of traditional, probably reclaimed brick, but the windows are not commensurate with the properties adjacent, and therefore I'm not a big fan of the design layout of a property.
Thank you. Councillor Dartnell and then Councillor Riley.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to, I think it would be fantastic to fill that space. There's a space there that is desperate to be built on, I think. And I think that the proposed building is not right at all. It's incongruous. I think the Civic Society perhaps used that word, and that's exactly how it looks to me. From both the Longden Road aspect and the river aspect, the building just looks way out of scale, too big, and not in keeping with either of the styles of the Victorian terraces on the one hand and the industrial building on the left. In a way that, I mean, it is incredibly incongruous to my eye. That's obviously a personal opinion, but I think if we were to see the extant permission on the two-storey house, I think that fits in beautifully as I remember it. And it's about 2 or 3 years old, isn't it? That a couple of years old, that planning application, but that fits in beautifully. I think also the setting back from the terrace, it is another individual house. It seems odd to me to set back in that way. I understand why for parking reasons, but it just doesn't work. Somehow the design with that setting back seems to make it sort of really stand out and not fit in with the feeling of the rest of the street.
Thank you, Councillor Roddy. Can we go back to the river view, please? Yeah, that's fine. The one with the illustration. Yeah. I'm never against these sort of applications. I really like seeing modern buildings. Sometimes when there's a nice little gap like this as well, and see something appear that's a little bit different, I do quite like it. And I like some of the innovation of the turntable and stuff like that. The thing that really stands out to me, and I don't know if anyone else has noticed it, and that is the direction of the roof. It's totally the opposite to everything else in that row. And that to me, that's the only thing that's spoiling it. If the roof was the other way around, I'd be like, well, yeah, that'd be fine. Let's fit in. And it's the roof is standing out, sticking out like a sore. No, I was going to say something else then.
I would say they're probably picking up their design cues from the other end of the building, and how that roof lines. They wouldn't be able to physically rotate the roof around the other way because of the depth of the building. I think that would give them all sorts of different issues. The points that we've been made about the design, this is difficult. This is contemporary. Yeah. And it's about those cues that you take from the buildings that you see within that street scene. And they have chosen to strongly align themselves with the scale and design features of the adjacent industrial building to give it the modern interpretation in terms of windows, roof pitch and things like that. Just to give you some context of where they've come from with it.
Okay, I've got a short queue and I'm at the top of it. So just to say, first of all, I disagree with Councillor Dartnell. Actually, I thought that that brewery site breathed much better without any building there. When this first came forward as an application, I was against that gap being filled at all. I thought it was of value and an amenity value, that gap. But anyway, that was lost. And I should also just point out, for the benefit of anybody listening, that yes, I was the local member at the time of the previous application, but I am not now. The boundary has moved since then, which is why Councillor Halliday is now the local member. Having said all that, my sense is actually also that this is overbearing in the street scene, and the attempt to sort of emulate the industrial building doesn't work for me. I would much prefer something of a smaller scale that works with the terrace more effectively. So I'm minded to despite her opening comment, to support everything else that Councillor Dartnell said. I've got Councillor Groves next.
It's Councillor Gross. Thank you, Chair. I agree with the officer's comments on, I think what they're trying to do is mirror the right-hand side of that image. And I think if that had come before us the same height as the right-hand side of that building, I think we'd have, you know, looked at it and thought, oh, that looks really good. It's just mirroring the other side. I'm not a big fan of the street image of it, you know, the next one. That does stand out a little bit. But saying that, in Market Drayton, for those of you that's ever been like to the Jules Brewery, there is something very similar to this in Market Drayton. As you go into the Jules Brewery, that is right in front of you, and then the terrace, which is the pub, is on the right hand side, and it works. It does look good. I'm neither here nor there on this one at the minute. I'll listen to what other councillors have to say.
I think it's Councillor Ebbs and then Councillor okay, I'll go to over here. Next.
Yes, if we could just go back to the waterside image one more time, sorry. So I would just, initially, in my initial comments, I made the point that they use reclaimed brick. I will note that in the front image, there is no reclaimed brick. They've tried to emulate the windows, but I just feel that as Shrewsbury prides itself on its heritage and prides itself on the conservation areas and the appearance of a 19th century and at times a medieval town setting, it's important, at least for me, that Shrewsbury tries to does its utmost best to maintain that setting. And with new buildings coming up in the centre of Shrewsbury or in the outlying areas, it should be commensurate with the architecture surrounding it. I appreciate comments made by the members saying they've tried to emulate in areas the buildings around it, but again, the architectural style is very distant from the architecture of Shrewsbury, and in this particular image is neighbouring areas. So I would be inclined to vote against this application.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take Councillor Mann and Councillor Owen, who haven't spoken yet, and save Councillor Dartnell till unless, yeah, in that order.
Yeah, very much on the same areas. I'll just give you my opinion for what it's worth. I appreciate the argument about infill or not to infill. I can see pros and cons for either. But if you're going to do it and do it that adjacent to the brewery, which is a magnificent building, I've always loved it. I think you got to get much closer to the vernacular of the original building than they have done there. Their design, I think, is a wonderful thing in its own right, but not in that context. So if more work was done to mirror the original building it's getting so close to, I'd be inclined to vote to approve. But at the moment, I don't like it.
Councillor, thank you. Councillor Owen, and then Councillor Davis, and then I'm going to look for a proposal.
I first saw it, I thought grand design, but I'm not a fan personally. I looking at the front, don't change the view. Looking at the front view, it was a case of it didn't seem to gel for me personally, either way. The back view, okay, it's got some benefits there, but overall, I don't think I would actually vote for the proposal.
Okay, Councillor Owen, and then Councillor Davis, beg your pardon, and then we'll look for a proposal.
No, I'd reservations at first, definitely, the way it blends in. But on the other hand, it's becoming quite iconic already. And I think there is something really quite appealing about this design. I like the way sort of, you've got the black trying to match the windows. It almost sort of simulates the far end. So I can see where you've been trying to get to from that. I think if it did go through, people would be paddling down that river, just have a look at it, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Right, do we have any proposals? I'm going to move it to a proposal because I think we've knocked it about. I was assuming you were going to make a proposal, Councillor Donald, but maybe not.
I'm very happy to make a proposal. I'd like to propose that we reject the applications on the on the basis that it's too dominant, that it doesn't fit at all with the surrounding the buildings in terms of its style. So it's incongruous in design. There's any problem there with a contemporary building, but it's just one that takes no materials from anywhere else. It has nothing to reflect other than that gable end, or you probably don't call it that when it's so big, but that, facing, reflecting the tower. So so I'd like to propose that we reject on those grounds.
And we have that seconded. Okay. Okay, I'm sort of minded to move it to a vote, actually. Is it a new point?
I know we kind of have two motions on the table, but unless Councillor Darton would like to revisit it, I'd prefer to defer to give them a chance to come back with a more congruent design. Because, yeah, I still think they deserve a shot at putting something there. But I think we've got so many opinions here, but
I'm going to suggest that there is an exact planning permission.
Yeah.
So they already have a design which has been approved.
If we reject it, give us another design.
Well, they can if they want, but that's up to them.
Okay, in that case.
Okay. Right. I'm going to.
Yes. And it was Councillor Groves' point about maybe making that one then look like the other. And the only issue I've got with that is if we were to do that, then you would really have the problem of overlooking the terrace houses. The thing I'm looking at the moment, this application is sitting on the actual brewery site, and so it's easy for us to break away from the terrace houses. But at the same time, if we were to go bigger to make it look like the other end, then we've got a big problem with the terrace houses, and I think we could really be looking over them. And I agree with Councillor Davis. It's iconic, to be honest. And we do have these kind of properties around Shrewsbury.
Okay, thank you. Luckily we're not having to redesign it. We just have to vote on what we've got. So, okay. Are we clear enough on what the proposal is to reject on the grounds of it being unsuitable and incongruous within the conservation area? Okay.
Do we want to add street scene? And I'm just thinking, because this view is actually from the public footpath on the river, isn't it? Rather than.
I think yes.
Yeah.
Councillor Darton did mention the street scene issues from the front as well.
Should mention the word dominance.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Are we delegating final perfection of wording to officers? I just want to clarify, not to change the word.
I think we're comfortable doing that in this case. Yeah. I think the points have been made. Yeah, thank you. Okay, move to a vote.
Okay, so we have a motion which has been seconded to refuse. Please confirm if you're for, against, or abstaining. Andy Davis.
So against. Okay, so.
Rosemary Darton. Greg Ebbs.
For.
And Adam Pfeiffer.
For.
Gary Groves.
Against.
Mark Owen.
For.
Carl Rowley.
Against.
Brendan Mullen.
Abstain.
And Julian Dean.
For.
4, 3 against, and 1 abstain.
Thank you very much. So we move on to the final application, which is the footpath outside 5 Castle Street, Shrewsbury. My guess is this will be quite a quick debate. Over to officers.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an application for full planning permission and advertisement consent for a street hub unit and with inserted advert panels. It is located on the footpath outside Marks and Spencer's in Shrewsbury Town Centre. This is the unit with its panelling within it. That's the scale of it. So there are 2 issues of consideration, highway safety and amenity. Officers have no concerns on a highway safety aspect, but are recommending refusal on grounds of the adverse impact on public amenity, particularly given the location in the conservation area. Thank you, Chair.
Can you just remind the committee why it's come to committee, just so we're clear as to why we're talking about it?
Yeah, we have this at committee because the public footpath is ours and we don't have delegated powers to make these determinations.
Thank you very much. Okay, so the recommendation is to refuse, which is in line with the recommendation from the town council. Do we need a debate? Welcome one if people wish to make any voice. Otherwise, we're looking for a proposal from the floor. You're proposing to accept the recommendation. Can I see a seconder? That's seconded. Are we comfortable with moving straight to a vote on this one? Okay.
Okay, so the proposal is to refuse application. So if you can confirm whether you accept, refuse, or, sorry, if you vote against, wish to abstain. So Andy Davis, Rosemary Dartnall.
So can I, it's a bit of a double negative situation, my little brain can't cope. What do I say if we're going to reject the application? Four. Thank you.
Sorry.
Folks, we're in the middle of a vote, please. We are in the middle of a vote.
Greg Ebbs.
4.
Adam Faithful. Gary Grove.
4.
Mark Owen.
4.
Paul Rowley.
4.
Brendan Mallon.
4.
Julian Dean.
4.
It's unanimous.
Thank you very much. That leads us to the appeals. Officers, if you'd like to briefly take us through the appeals, please.
I have got nothing to note.
Okay.
Just to note that we've realised that some of the appeals, I think between the December to January period, were missed off because of the committee being cancelled. So rather than trying to patch them together now, we'll put them on the agenda for the next committee so we can look at those.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the close of the meeting. The date of the next meeting is we're scheduled to meet on Tuesday, the 7th of March, 2026. Just for your benefit, we now have in your diaries, I believe, a holding appointment for visits should they be required. Obviously, we don't know that yet, but just that was requested, so that should now be in all your diaries. Thank you very much. Thank you to officers for your work this afternoon.